2026 is the year of disclosure. If you know anything about alien abduction,
A little bit.
I had two very close broad daylight UFO sightings here over Los Angeles. It's just before dusk, and I'm seeing this black equilateral triangular craft, and I'm looking at this thing gliding across the valley like it was moving on a sheet of glass.
It was hovering.
And then it just shot up in the blink of an eye into the clouds, and it was gone. Once you see something like that close physically, it changes everything. I understood that the UFO had been shown to me on purpose. The world is not what I was told.
Daryl Anka, a man who channels an extraterrestrial hybrid named Bashar. Millions of people have been following Bashar's advice about how to save humanity and how to change our lives.
The entity stopped talking to the class and turned right to me and said, "There's an entity here for you right now if you're ready to begin."
Where does he live? Do we know?
He's an extraterrestrial physical entity about 500 light years in the direction of the Orion constellation in a parallel reality. This is a telepathic connection. They had to shift into other parallel realities where human DNA was still viable, like ours, and use that to create hybrids, which means they're genetically connected to us.
Typical hybrid extraterrestrial is not something I ever thought we'd be talking about.
They're noticing we're making the same mistakes.
What are we facing right now? What is coming next?
In 2027, we will be introduced literally to extraterrestrials.
Hi, I'm Mayim Bialik.
And I'm Jonathan Cohen.
And welcome to our breakdown. The best way I can sum up what we're going to talk about is the following. The aliens are coming. The year 2026 is a year of disclosure. And the year 2027 is one that many people are saying is the year that we will finally make contact with beings from other realities, other planets, other stars, other universes. Our guest today knows this to be true because he receives this information from a being that lives in a parallel reality. And if that sounds incredible, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Since 1984, a man named Daryl Anka, born in Ottawa and raised right here in Woodland Hills, California, has been in conversation with what he calls a friend from the future, Bashar. Daryl was in a meditation course where he was learning about the concept of channeling, and all of a sudden, he heard a voice and an entity present itself to him. And for 41 years, millions of people have been listening to the conversations that Daryl has with Bashar, an extraterrestrial hybrid entity. We're going to talk to Daryl about how he came to understand channeling, what it means, what it feels like in his body, how does he know he's not crazy, and what is this information that humanity is being given from an extraterrestrial hybrid that can help us understand the revolution that humanity is apparently about to step into?
We're also going to talk about his first experience seeing two UAPs and the journey that led him to search for the ability to channel, as well as an enormous amount on how the universe works, what the future civilization that is currently contacting him has gone through, and the risks that Earth is potentially trying to avoid as we progress.
The wisdom of Bashar has been put into many forms of media, but the formula, a gift from the future, the instruction manual for living your best life is what Daryl Anka says is our guide to being available to whatever is about to arrive, which he says is going to happen in 2027. In case you missed our episode with Lee Harris, where we talked to someone about what the channeling experience is like, this is a lovely companion episode to that, because not only are we interested in what these messages are from a parallel reality, but what does it mean for us to step outside our own conscious experience and be able to be open to receiving information that apparently is just floating out there.
In fact, he says that we can all channel and access this information that is available to us.
We cannot wait for you to hear our conversation with Daryl Anka. And please join us over on Substack. I have a feeling this episode's going to have a lot of conversation. We'll probably have some extra content as well to share over there. So head over to bialikbreakdown.substack.com, join the growing breaker community, and let's welcome in person Daryl Anka to the Breakdown. Break it down. You've been receiving information for 40 years?
41, yeah.
For 41 years. Millions of people all over the world follow the advice that you channel. What would you say, based on the information you receive and the audience that you speak to, what are we facing right now as a species? What are humans going through now, and what is coming next?
I think we're facing a resetting of humanity over the next few decades to go in a new direction, to evolve in a new direction. And one of the main things I believe that will help push that forward is disclosure and contact with extraterrestrial life. So I think we're at the end of one cycle and going through a transition, kind of getting everything out on the table so we can really kind of see the positive, the negative, and say, what kind of a world do we really finally want? Really start making some better choices and be able to move forward in a more positive way.
Many people describe huge amounts of surprise and shock at a lot of the news cycle. And if I frame it within what you just said, this has always existed. It just hasn't been visible.
One of the things that came out of the channeling lately is that 2026 is the year of disclosure, but that doesn't just mean disclosure of UFO information. It means things that have been held secret for a long time are starting to come out of the woodwork so that everyone can see what's been going on, what's been hidden, get it kind of, air the dirty laundry so that we can really say, is this what we want to continue, or do we really want to move in a new direction? Can we really change the way we do things? Can we really change how we look at stuff?
For how long has this been going on? Meaning, you've been channeling for 41 years. For thousands of years, right, of human history, we have recorded history of people receiving information, right?
Right.
And in theory, for as long as humans has existed, we've been interacting with a lot of other, theoretically, entities or levels of consciousness. So I guess my question would be, just like every generation is like, boy, these kids today, they've got it so easy. Is this information that you feel is timely literally for this generation? Is there something special about the era that we are living in that is different than, let's say, 1,000 years ago?
I believe this goes in cycles. And I believe we have sort of been here before. But I think that every one of those cycles adds a little bit more, but now I think we're at a threshold. I think we have enough, let's say, inertia or momentum. There is now more of a mass understanding of these kinds of things rather than it being, let's say, consolidated just within a priesthood or some particular secret cult or something along that line. Now it's like something that everyone can kind of be aware of, whether they're into it or not. People are not so freaked out by somebody saying things like, I saw a UFO, and stuff like that. So I think the difference now is the accumulation of information that we now have that is helping to generate a stronger momentum to move in a new direction. Because I kind of call a lot of this stuff the biggest secret that everyone already knows. It's just that nobody talks about it as much. But now we are starting to do a lot of dialogue about this kind of thing. You've heard about the recent congressional hearing on UFOs and whistleblowers and, trying to
We've
create
spoken to many people
exactly
in that realm,
trying to create laws so that people don't lose their careers by talking about this kind of thing. So to me, that's a major difference. That's a sea change.
We're going to get to kind of the larger kind of purpose and I would say output, right, of a lot of the messages that you're able to articulate. This is the formula, A Gift from the Future, which has many cool different parts that we want to get to in different ways. I have to ask you to explain to us a little bit of your origin story, because, what I'm trained as a neuroscientist. Jonathan is a writer and a creative, but he has a background in Reiki and energy healing. So, we're this kind of interesting combination. And I believe in many things that I cannot see or quantify or understand. And I think what's really kind of refreshing about the way you speak about your own abilities is that you acknowledge that there's not a way to prove.
No, not at all.
What's necessarily happening. But it doesn't mean that the information's not valuable.
Right. The information in itself is the proof, because it actually does make changes in your life. And that's what I want people to focus on anyway, because I don't really know exactly where this is coming from.
Okay.
This is the way it presents itself.
Right.
And I have to go with it because that's the way it comes through. But no one has to believe that Bashar is real.
I want you to explain to us in kind of the simplest terms that you can what you understand about your identity. And then I want you to take us through how you got there.
This is 50 years ago, 1973-ish. And I had two very close broad daylight UFO sightings here over Los Angeles. First time about 150 feet away, and the second time only about 70 feet away, with witnesses with me both times. And I actually brought some things to help.
We love a visual aid.
Just sort of give you some idea of
And
what's going on.
and how old were you when this happened?
This is in my 20s, about 23 or so.
Did you believe in aliens, UFOs? What kind of person were you when you had this experience?
I've always been a creative. I've always been an artist. I've been drawing ever since I could pick up a pencil. I always heard people talk about, oh, I saw a UFO. I never really gave it much thought. I was very much enjoying things like science fiction and stuff like that, Star Trek and what have you. But no, I never knew or gave any thought to whether that was really real until I saw something. And then it's like, okay, the world is not what I thought. There is something going on here that we've been told is fake or not real, but it is. Because once you see something like that close physically, it changes everything.
Mind Be Alex Breakdown is supported by No CD.
Have you found yourself stuck replaying conversations over and over, trying to feel completely sure that your friend doesn't secretly hate you? Or have you spent hours researching a minor ache or pain even after a doctor said you're fine because your doubts and fears just wouldn't go away? You might be surprised to learn that experiences like that, where a distressing, unwanted thought gets stuck in your mind and you feel like you have to do something to try and solve it, stop it, or feel 100% sure about it, can be a sign of obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. OCD is nothing like the stereotypes that you like getting things organized. Real OCD is a serious condition that can focus on anything: your identity, your morals, your relationships, your sense of reality. But what makes it so debilitating is that it often fixates on exactly the things you care about the most. I've struggled with OCD myself, so I know how misunderstood it is and how hard it can be to even figure out what's going on, let alone get the right kind of help. That's why I'm telling you about No CD, the world's leading provider of specialty training to identify and effectively treat OCD, to help you manage it so that you can get your life back. In live face-to-face virtual sessions, they help you reclaim your time, confidence, and freedom. No CD is covered by insurance for over 138 million Americans and includes support between sessions so you never have to face OCD alone. If any of this sounds like you or someone you love, No CD can help. Book a free 15-minute call to get started at learn.nocd.com/break.
That's learn.nocd.com/break. Mind Be Alex Breakdown is supported by Element.
Element. How we love Element. Element helps anyone stay hydrated without sugar, food dye, or other dodgy ingredients that are found in popular electrolyte and sports drinks. Electrolyte deficiency or imbalance, it can cause a lot of problems: headaches, cramps, fatigue, brain fog, weakness. Well, Element is here to help. It's a zero sugar electrolyte drink mix and sparkling electrolyte drink born from the growing body of research revealing that optimal health outcomes, guess what? They occur at 2 to 3 times the sodium levels that the government recommends. Each stick pack delivers a meaningful dose of electrolytes, and it's formulated for anyone on a mission to restore health through hydration. It's perfectly suited for athletes, for people who are fasting, if you're following a keto diet, low carb, whole food, paleo. From health experts like Stanford neuroscientists and functional nutritionists to moms and exercise enthusiasts, Element's perfect for anyone looking to prioritize their everyday health. When you're sweating more, you are losing electrolytes. Element is there. It's a quick and easy way to alleviate all of the symptoms that can happen if you don't have enough electrolyte balance in your system. Hydration is foundational for energy, clarity, mood, and it shouldn't feel like a chore to check off or a privilege to earn. That's where 20-ounce sparkling comes in with 4 refreshing flavors: pineapple salt, lemonade salt, black cherry salt, that's the one that's my favorite, and orange salt, built for the workday, the weekend, and every sip in between. We always reach for one before we have a marathon day of work here at MBB. Salty, bright, and crisp, these tasty slim cans deliver 500 milligrams of sodium, 100 milligrams potassium, and 30 milligrams magnesium. Members of our community can get their free Element sample pack with any purchase when they order through our custom URL at drinkelement.com/Mayim. Try Element, see how you feel. Element's got a world-class customer service team. If you're not satisfied, they'll take care of you. Again, that's drinklmnt.com/MAYIM, drinkelement.com/Mayim.
This is basically a CG recreation of what I saw.
I mean,
Having seen that,
hold on. It's not every day that someone is sitting in this chair saying, I saw up close with witnesses an unidentified
object.
Anomalous phenomenon. Okay, so what happened? Like, walk us through it.
Me, a friend, my brother, my sister, and the brother of my friend were driving down the San Diego freeway back into the valley.
Okay.
There's that long grade that goes down into the valley. And at the intersection of the 405 and the 101, there is about a 12-story hotel that I think has changed hands a couple of times. I'm the one driving, so I'm looking ahead. It's just before dusk, and everyone's talking and not paying attention to anything. But I'm looking out, and I'm seeing these two bright lights hovering over the hotel. Now, I'm thinking at first, well, that's just one of those weird illusions where because of the way I'm moving and because of the way this plane is moving, it doesn't look like it's moving. It's just an optical illusion.
But it was hovering.
But it was just stock still. So I thought, okay, is it a helicopter hovering over the hotel? Why is it hovering over the hotel? The closer we got down to it, I started drawing everyone's attention to look at those lights because, again, I could see it wasn't really a helicopter. I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't moving. It was just hovering right over the hotel. As soon as we got close enough, we could see it was this black equilateral triangular craft, stock still in the air with these blue-white lights on each point and this dull red-orange light in the center. And we were all staring at it going, what the hell is that? And as soon as we passed it, I was going to go onto the 101 toward LA. So it was on my left above the hotel. And as soon as we passed it, it moved across to the other side of the freeway. So it was on my left again because we came around this way. So now it's over here. And I'm looking at this thing gliding across the valley in the most unusual way because it was like it was moving on a sheet of glass. There was no bobbling like an airplane. It was just like sliding, and it went over the mountains. So we're all like freaking out and going, oh my God, we just saw a UFO.
Were other people, did you notice anyone else noticing it?
Many, many years later, I heard a report that someone also saw it at the same time, described the same thing. But at that time, no. And that's kind of part of the weirdest thing of the second sighting we had, because it was literally a week later.
And also, just to be clear, there are many things in the sky that we may not know what they are. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's an alien craft, which is part of the government conversation about there could be things that are secrets, there could be things that are beyond our
However,
purview.
This thing made no noise.
Right.
It was completely silent and moved like nothing I've ever seen. And
like it was not obeying the laws of this universe.
And this is back in 1973.
That's what I was going to say.
Very early. Yeah.
We were still living in huts.
Well, I don't even know if the stealth bomber was on the drawing board at that point. I don't think
so, yeah.
So very unusual. So
a week later,
I'm driving now with the same friend in the passenger seat, this woman named Tracy, and we are stopped at an intersection at Pico and Westwood. And suddenly this thing comes literally like 70 feet up in the air.
It wanted either Junior's Deli or the Burger Shack.
Crossing the street. And we were looking at each other like, again? Like, what are we being invaded? What's going on? So I decided to follow it. So I turned right and it went over this neighborhood, was kind of zigzagging. She was leaning out the window, shotgunning, telling me, it's over there, because there's a lot of trees. I was kind of losing it. She said, turn this way, turn that way. So we were literally zigzagging through the neighborhood, trying to follow this thing. We could intermittently see it over the trees. And finally, we kind of lost sight of it. And just on instinct at one point, I made a hard right on this street. And she just yelled, "Stop." And I slammed on the brakes. We looked up. This thing is hovering above the car about 60 feet. And then it just shot up in the blink of an eye into the clouds.
Whoa.
Like that. And it was gone. And we got out and we looked around. There wasn't a soul on the street. Nobody walking their dog. Nobody watering their lawn. Nobody else saw this thing. It was the most surreal experience. So after that, I said, okay, I got to find out what this is all about, if there's any information on this at all. So I started doing a lot of research, reading books.
Also, there was no internet that we could be using to access things.
No, this was one shelf in a bookstore that had every single metaphysical or bizarre book on it, all in one shelf. And I just kind of like went down the shelf. And that's when I started, not only reading about whatever there was on UFOs, but anything having to do with psychic functioning, anything to do with channeling, the Seth material. So I just kind of started getting familiar with a lot of that.
So it was that moment that precipitated your curiosity.
If you see one alien spaceship, I'd be like, that's enough. Two in a week. It's
and
powerful.
the same kind of craft, at least, if not the same craft. It was like the world is not what I was told.
Does it feel like you're going crazy? Because I would imagine upon seeing that it might feel like, am I in this reality?
Well, that's more the feeling. It wasn't that going crazy. It was like the world is not what I was told. Something different is happening. There's another reality here. That's what it felt like. It felt very disorienting. Not crazy, but disorienting. So that's why I really had to find out what anything I could about this. 10 years after the sightings, and after I had done a lot of research, I was introduced to a channel who was doing events at the time. Now that I had sort of read the Seth material, I knew kind of what channeling was. But this person said, go and listen to this. And I went and I listened, and I went for a few months, and I thought, okay, this is interesting information. It's very helpful.
What kind of information was it?
Not unlike what comes through my channeling.
Okay.
In terms of like how to better your life, how to improve things, how to be more creative, but with really interesting, grounded sort of techniques and practical ideas. Nothing airy-fairy. And in fact, that was kind of the funny thing about that teacher is, all of this sort of semi-spiritual information is coming through this guy. And as soon as he comes out of his altered state, it's like, where's my cigarettes and give me a hamburger and a cup of coffee. And he's like very not that at all. So the personality shift was very, very evident. The entity coming through or whatever, coming through that particular person ultimately said that they would teach a channeling class. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Everything I've read so far was that a person is just like walking down the street and they just pass out and start talking. Like it's just something that happens to them. How do you teach something like that?
I mean, better question. How do you learn something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So I was very curious. Okay, I want to see what this teaching technique is all about. So I went into the class just to do my research, not thinking I'm going to become a channel. Because again, it wasn't expected that you would do that. It was just like, well, maybe this will help you get in touch with your creativity or your own higher mind or whatever you want to do. The class was 12 weeks. It was different guided meditations and exercises. About halfway through the course, 6 weeks in, when we were under a guided meditation being given by the entity coming through the channel, I just received what I can only describe as a telepathic hit. In the instant that happened, a memory came back of having made an agreement to do this in this life. I understood that the UFO had been shown to me on purpose to get me to start doing the research. The word Bashar was there. It's an Arabic word. I don't speak Arabic.
Yep.
The face of the being was there. And I thought, okay, now I'm going crazy. This is a hallucination. There's something happening to me. The meditation's doing this or whatever.
So you're in this class and they're leading you through
A meditation,
a
guided
meditation.
meditation.
So like it's like drop in, focus on your breath.
Focus on the color green and relax your body. Focus on
and how many minutes into this are we like, is it 3 minutes in? It's 10 minutes in.
Yeah, I'd say, 15, 20 minutes into the meditation.
So you're breathing, you're quiet, and then literally all of a sudden, bang.
It's like somebody shoved a CD in my head. All of this is there all of a sudden. The minute this happened, the second it happened, The entity stopped talking to the class and turned right to me, and I opened my eyes, and he said, "There's an entity here for you right now if you're ready to begin." And I said, "What?" And I looked behind me. Somehow, one of the other classmates, a woman, had picked up on the image I saw in my head of Bashar's face. She was sketching it on a piece of paper.
No.
So I said, okay. This is not just my imagination. Somebody else is picking up on this. So I'm going to see where this goes. And I continued to practice this and let it through and let it through and let it through. I did enough that the teacher asked me to co-channel the next class with him.
In that moment, you started to practice.
In the next time, you just keep practicing, letting it through, bringing words through. It was very halting, very difficult at first to contain the energy that was coming through, but I kept going.
What does it feel like?
The best way I can describe it, I use an analogy. It's like trying to shove Hoover Dam through a garden hose.
Wow.
The pressure is immense. And it's just this extra energy that you just wonder, can I contain this?
Does it require translation or the words are right there?
The words are automatically there. That's what's the weird thing. And I can get into that in a little bit of how that works, actually. But I did well enough that he asked me to teach the next class, which is the class where I met my wife. So, Erica. But at the same time, a woman came along and was talking to him about wanting to do a thesis paper on the connection between psychology and channeling. So she was looking for volunteers. So I became one of her subjects. I would go to her house. Her friends would come. I would channel for them. She'd sit in her chair and take notes. First week was like 5 friends. Word of mouth. Next week was 10 friends. Word of mouth. Next week was 20 friends. Growing and growing, sharing tapes and recordings. Then I would have to do it twice a week. Then I'd have to do it in 2 houses. Then people would start inviting me to different cities. People started inviting me to different countries. Here I am 41 years later, still doing it.
In that first moment that you received this information, you received some sort of acknowledgement or awareness that you had kind of signed up for this.
Yes. And the message that was there was, now it's time to begin if this is something you still want to do.
Were they testing you?
It was a choice. It was an offer given to me that way. Even though I know in the memory I made an agreement to do this, they were still saying, whoever they were, is this something you still want to do?
When was this agreement made, to your understanding?
My understanding is it was made prior to this incarnation.
So who are you?
There's several ways I can answer that. One way I like to answer it is I am you from another point of view. We are all souls. We are all part of Source. We're drops in the ocean. This is just, I guess, what I chose. This is what happened to me. This is the way it happened for me. But that's why I tell people, you don't have to believe it because I can't prove that this is another entity. It could be another aspect of my own consciousness. I don't know, because the human mind is mysterious and we don't know a lot about it. But this is the way it presents itself. And of course, I have my own validations, like the UFO, dream encounters I've had with him that are not normal dreams, that are just conversations like I'm having with you for an hour in the dream state. But that's not important for anyone to have to believe to get benefit out of the information.
You've studied your brain in the documentary that you did about how it changes when you're with that entity versus when you're not with that entity. And
Yes.
I think that's a really important point to talk about that distinction. Can
I know
you
would
explain
like
it
this
to
because
us?
you're a neuroscientist. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons why we made the documentary, is to explain how this happened and also to demystify channeling, because everyone channels. It's called gamma in the brain. That's the channeling state. 40 to 100 cycles per second is gamma. That's the channeling
She
state.
channels when she organizes.
Everyone channels when they do what they love to do, when you're not paying attention to the passage of time, when you're in the zone. You are in a channeling state. You're in gamma. And that's what we discovered, is that's where I go when I'm channeling. And certain things happen in the brain during the channeling state.
The set point, and we're talking about a set point, the set point is stable. It's a stable kind of state and rarely fluctuates over the lifespan. When Daryl channels, it changes in minutes.
My basic understanding, as it was explained to me, is at a certain point in your life, the human brain sort of arrives at a level where it starts processing information and it stays there for the rest of your life, unless you have a head trauma or something that changes it.
Like during your conscious awake phases.
Yeah, this is the way you process information at this rate of speed, and it stays that way for the rest of your life, and it's not ever supposed to change. But when I channel, it goes up almost immediately. When the entity is talking, it goes from my stable resting place is 9 hertz, 9 cycles a second. When the entity is talking, it goes to 10. When the entity is listening, it goes to 11. And what the technician said to her that represented is he's listening more intently than what he's actually talking about. And when he's listening that intently, it's more of an empathic connection where I'm hearing everything you're saying on every level so I can respond to you thoroughly and properly about what you're really asking.
Who is Bashar? Meaning, is he one of many? Is he the one?
No. Well, again, this is the way he presents himself. He's an extraterrestrial physical entity. This is a telepathic connection. He is a member of a civilization. He is helping us move forward like many other extraterrestrials theoretically are.
Where does he live? Like, do we know?
Yes, he says where his planet is and where his solar system is, but it's in a parallel reality. So
that's hard.
I know. So he's saying if you want to overlap his universe with our universe, his solar system would be in about 500 light years in the direction of the Orion constellation, but you can't see it unless you shift into his universe. And he can't see ours unless he shifts into our universe.
What's happening in that parallel universe?
Well, what isn't happening? I mean, what's happening in our universe? There's so many things.
Meaning,
are there supermarkets?
On his planet, no.
It's my, like anthropomorphic obsession that he has to be like a creature. Like he could be an entity that is communicating in a way that doesn't even have a physical manifestation.
But it doesn't require a physical
Correct.
manifestation, but he does have a physical manifestation.
What does he look like?
He's a hybrid being. And if you know anything about alien abduction,
A little bit.
you know what the grays look like?
Yeah.
50-50 between us and a gray. Hybrid. So 5 feet tall on average, relatively slender, skin about this white, eyes larger than ours, ears, nose, mouth smaller than ours, head a little larger. Males don't have hair, females do, tends to be white, very slender. Typical hybrid extraterrestrial.
Typical hybrid extraterrestrial is not something I ever thought we'd be talking about.
Yes.
Typical hybrid extraterrestrial.
And is he helping as a hobby? Is it
No.
part of his job?
He's a first contact specialist.
And is there like a genius bar for first contact specialists? Is there like a whole organization and they're all helping in different ways?
Yes, there are. It is a calling in his society, along with social engineers, planetary engineers, all sorts of different kinds of things.
Mind Be Alex Breakdown is supported by Shopify.
Starting something new isn't just hard, it can be downright terrifying. So much time and effort goes into this thing in the pre-planning phase. You're not even sure if it's going to work out. It can be hard, to make that leap of faith. Trust us, we know. I mean, when we started this podcast, we really didn't know what we were doing. What if no one wants to come on? What if nobody listens? What if I make a fool of myself? Now we know we were right to believe in ourselves, despite all our fears, hesitations, and that also it helps when you have a partner like Shopify on your side to help, like we do. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., from household names to first-time business owners just getting started to a little podcast like Mind Be Alex Breakdown. Shopify's been our one-stop shop for all of our merch store needs for the past many years now. Get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. Accelerate your efficiency, whether you're uploading new products or trying to improve existing ones. Shopify's packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. It's time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/breakdown. Go to shopify.com/breakdown. That's shopify.com/breakdown.
Mind Bialec's Breakdown is supported by IQ Bar, one of our absolute favorite snack sponsors.
IQ protein bars, IQ mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are the delicious low-sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The ultimate sampler pack is what we recommend. It's a great way to try all IQ bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ bars, like this one, 8 IQ mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. All IQ bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. They're packed with clean, delicious ingredients that keep you physically and mentally fit, like magnesium, lion's mane, and more. IQ Bar's plant protein bars are the smarter snack choice with plenty of plant protein, tons of fiber, and no added sugar. IQ Mix is a zero-sugar drink mix that hydrates with electrolytes, improves mood, and boosts clarity. IQ Joe is a mushroom coffee designed for mental clarity and packed with 200 milligrams of natural caffeine, plus comes in 4 different flavors that will transform your morning routine. Plus, we always look forward to the limited edition and seasonal flavors, too. When IQ Bar sent us their ultimate sampler pack, what stood out to me was that Jonathan tried everything and loved them all. I love them as well. This is the only one that's left from our last box. So this is what Jonathan's left me, which is the wild blueberry, which is delicious.
Please don't eat it.
I will not eat it. I'll save it for you. It's great as a go-to snack, satisfies hunger with no sugar crash, and they're super easy to just throw in your bag. Right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text BREAKDOWN to 64,000. Text BREAKDOWN to 64,000.
That's Breakdown to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
What is required for me to have access to believing?
I can't in any way, shape, or form imagine anything that would make you believe. It would simply be your choice to say, there is a usable amount of information here that's down to earth and practical and actually can create a physical effect in my life. And that's all that's important for you to get a hold of right now, because if in fact we are going to have open contact within a couple of years, well, then you'll have all the proof of extraterrestrials that you need, which I do believe is about to happen. So,
when you started channeling, did you also believe that was imminent, or has this evolved?
This has evolved.
Got it.
This has evolved. He originally said there was a particular window in which open contact was going to happen, which I think originally many years ago was somewhere between 2020 and 2033. And over the years, he has been narrowing it down as we have been doing things like discussing disclosure and all that. So he is now saying, and actually he's not the only person saying, other psychic mediums have also corroborated this, that probably in 2027, we will be introduced literally to extraterrestrials by an official report.
I really want that to happen. The main reason I want it to happen is that so people stop saying that it's not real. Like we can stop fighting about it.
Yeah. Well, disclosure that's happening is one of the steps, starting to take it seriously.
I mean, there's still so much resistance to it.
Of course. And there probably will be even after open contact, because people will be in denial, or they won't want it to be real.
They'll claim it's AI.
They'll claim it's fake, whatever. He's not saying everyone's going to go, okay, we're all, kumbaya. No, it's going to take a couple of decades for humanity to get used to the idea. But he's saying, but it has to happen soon, because you have to have the time before humanity's reset period to absorb all of this at your own pace in the way that you want to. We're not going to force it on you.
First contact specialist, are they there as like a nonprofit? I'm wondering if they have a vested interest in Earth being successful in some kind of way.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, like I said, they're a hybrid race, which means they're genetically connected to us. So they consider us to be family. In a sense, they consider us to be like ancestors.
They've been around longer than we have?
Much.
Like millions of years?
Not their society specifically, but other ETs, yes. Since they are a hybrid race created through a hybridization process, through a genetic process, they are, in a sense, relative to the galaxy, a relatively new race. But in their reality, in their parallel reality, in relation to them, we would consider them to be about 3,000 years ahead of us in advance. They're trying to help us avoid some of the pitfalls that the species that created them went through. Because his story of what the Greys are is that they used to be a parallel reality version of Earth. They used to be human. They destroyed their world. They had to mutate to survive into what we now see as the Greys. They lost the ability to reproduce. They had to shift into other parallel realities where human DNA was still viable, like ours, and use that to create hybrids to perpetuate their culture.
Has this come to you in bits and pieces over the years? Was this an early...
No, he did lay this out a few years ago, but more and more detail has been coming out over the years about why this is happening, how it's happening, and why they're helping us. They're noticing we're making the same mistakes, and they don't want us to have to make the same mistakes and do the same thing that turned their reality into the Greys.
Humans are trying to figure out right now how to coexist on a planet that has shared resources, and we cannot for the life of us work collectively as a species.
Right.
Big problem when the survival of the species requires global cooperation.
Yes. And that's one of the reasons I think we're about to have open contact. I'm going to put this in this language. It's about time for the adults to step in and say, that's enough. You're messing up the planet. It's very important that you don't.
Is our technological progress, specifically with the development of AI, the beginning of the hybridization process?
It's one level of what we will merge with in the future, but it's not the beginning. The hybridization process has been going on for thousands of years.
So when people say they're abducted by aliens because they're taking their DNA,
That's
might be...
why.
Oh.
That's why.
They need the human DNA to go back to help them propagate the species that has basically been
Yes.
unable to advance because of the mutations and degradation of their...
Yes. And therefore the hybrids are now helping us to avoid the same fate.
We spoke to Robin Hanson. We speak to many people who think about contact in very different forms. And his perspective with the zoo hypothesis that aliens are monitoring the progression of Earth, potentially because it is safer for us not to leave the planet because it will create a intergalactic upset if we're launching ourselves off into the galaxy. What do you say about that?
I'd say there's a little bit of truth to that, but I don't think there's actually much that we could do other than they will not allow us to have a global thermonuclear war. I think they've demonstrated that very clearly on several occasions when UFOs have hovered over missile silos and scrambled the launch codes. And that's been their way of saying, you're not doing that. This is too valuable of a place for souls to incarnate into, to learn things, to learn lessons, to grow. And they're not going to allow humanity, now that it's reached a level where it could annihilate the entire planet, they're saying, no, you can't do that. So that's one of the reasons why I think they're finally stepping in.
And do we get to that place because there are just rogue souls who are unruly and childlike? And is like, why are we even at the precipice where our salvation has to be monitored in this way?
Earth is a tough school. Earth is a school of polarities. Very extreme polarities. Different planets have different kinds of cycles, different kinds of reasons for being. Souls that incarnate on Earth are like going through a master graduating class of learning to transform negative to positive, darkness to light, limitation to freedom. But a soul can come in saying, I'm going to cause a lot of chaos in this life, because if I cause enough, maybe humanity will finally say enough. And really learn the lesson and figure out how to not have that happen again.
Oh, you mean good chaos or bad chaos?
Bad chaos. It's a yin and a yang kind of situation where you can use the negative to foment a positive change by making people so sick and tired of being sick and tired that they finally say, stop.
What do you think it is about our experience now that requires this kind of change?
Well, I think that we've arrived at a point, like I said, where things have come to a head, where we can be completely out of control to the point where the planet can be annihilated. And they're saying, no, you can't do that. And now it's time, like I said, for the adults to come in and say, look, we've been helping you behind the scenes for a long time. And there are some people on your planet that know that. And we are working with them secretly. But now it's got to be out in the open. Everyone has to understand that, not that we're forcing ourselves on you, but everyone has to understand that this is another choice.
If you knew then what you know now, would you still have chosen to be the recipient of this kind of channeling?
Oh, absolutely. I am driven to just help people on every level. If I see someone in the mall that's looking confused, I will stop and say, what are you looking for? Let me help you.
You'll be like, let me channel what you need.
No, I'm just driven to help people. And so I think if I understood from the beginning that this is something that was really going to help people, I would have chosen to continue to do it anyway. That's one of the things I get out of it, not only that it's helped my life, but that people are constantly coming back to me and saying, this made such a big difference in my life when I applied the information properly and got a result, and my life is so much better now. That's extremely gratifying.
Has there been a time when you've gotten information that you did not want, or that you did not want to communicate, or when you wished, in the sort of like TV movie of your life, was there a moment where you were like, I don't want this information?
No, never. There are moments I can tell in the channeling when there is information being withheld that is not an appropriate time to deliver it.
What does that feel like?
It feels like I know there's something else there, but I'm not supposed to say anything.
Do you have other special powers? Like, do you have other things that other intuitive sense or?
More and more lately, because this is rubbing off on me in a way. And when I drive, I definitely have a spider sense. If there's a car coming out from the side and I can't see it, I know there's a car coming out and I stop. And there is inevitably a car coming out. So it's honed those kinds of vibrational senses a lot. It's honed some telepathic abilities. It's more increased the synchronicity that I experience in my life to the level where it's almost ridiculous. One of the movies we were going to make, I wanted a particular person to narrate it. Now, that's not who wound up doing it, but this is the level in which synchronicity has started happening in my life. This particular actor, we said, okay, we'll send a letter to his agent. So we sent the letter off saying, we'd like you to narrate this movie. The next day, my wife and I were meeting a friend who suggested a restaurant I had never been to before. We walk in the restaurant, who's walking out? That actor.
Yeah.
So things like that have been happening more and more and more and more, just to ridiculous proportions.
Thinking a little bit more about how it works, not just channeling, but how the earth works. And I love this explanation of, what is this society, civilization that's so far ahead of us, and what do they know? We speak to a lot of people who have NDEs, and they talk about seeing beyond the veil, outside of this physical reality. And one of the things they talk a lot about is the evolution of souls incarnating and then leaving.
Right.
Do you have a sense of when a soul comes in and leaves, is it a contained ecosystem? Are they going back out and going to other parts of the galaxy taking those lessons? How much is just sort of staying in the Earth ecosystem versus going back out and sharing that information?
My understanding is that once you are your non-physical self, your soul self, you have absolutely unlimited free will to choose anything you want, whatever that may be. So you can remain in spirit, you can explore other dimensions, you can incarnate on other planets, you can come back to Earth and incarnate, you can do anything, and probably there are things we can't even imagine because we're not there right now as options that we could be given.
Is Earth the hottest nightclub in the galaxy?
It is unique in certain ways because of the mix of things going on here. I'm sure there are other worlds that may be going through certain similar things. We're not the only one. But Earth is unique in terms of the mix of the kinds of things we're experiencing here. And that's another big story about why that may be.
It's got the best DJs.
Does Bashar communicate through other people as well?
He did temporarily to help them start channeling what they needed to channel, but then pulled back after he was done with that At this point, I'm the only one that does that
Huh.
with him. There are other members of his society that channel through other people.
Do you know those people?
I know a couple of them.
And does it track?
It really does, because it's freaky. Because if you've seen him channeling, you know how distinctly different his
Yeah.
personality is. Watching that come through another person, and especially like one time a Japanese woman, and it's that personality coming through a Japanese woman, it's like, okay, that's him.
Do you feel a little cheated on?
No.
What is your understanding about kind of where these things live, meaning these concepts, these ideas? Is it different states of consciousness that we're accessing?
Yes.
Like what is it that you're tapping into?
What's happening is I'm altering my brain waves to go to a certain state. He alters his brain waves to go to a certain state. We kind of meet in the middle and lock in frequency like two tuning forks vibrating in harmony. And when that happens, I become a translation device for his thoughts. And that's kind of what I was leading up to earlier, is when someone asks a question, the entire answer is there in a split second. It takes time for it to unspool in my language. That's why you never hear him say, or any hesitation when the information comes out, because it's already all there, and it's just some automatic function that's been trained into me to let it translate into English.
So why would Bashar, who's trying to communicate with us on a higher level, to communicate the kind of information that you are sending out, right, to people in this universe or in this reality, why should he bother himself with people's trivial questions or
because
life
nothing
decisions?
is trivial to him. There is a reason why someone is asking it. And very often when someone asks what you might think is a trivial question, he'll find a reason to pull it around in another direction and show why it was important for that person to ask that question, or how it can even serve other members in the audience who may be reluctant to ask that question.
And those things collectively, in theory, could help us as a people
Yes.
elevate our consciousness, elevate our our psychological health, right? If I'm having a problem with my mother or my thought, whatever.
Exactly.
If people come to you with that, there's a larger system at play, correct?
Yes. One of the things, I mean, the woman that runs Bashar Communications, who is the official distributor of the information, also is very familiar with different forms of psychology. To her, Bashar is a new level of psychology in terms of how he phrases things and how he says things work in the human brain and in our, whatever we want to call that, our makeup. We have this science fiction notion that an alien should be able to answer any question we ask them. That's not necessarily true. Bashar has a specific function. Like I said, he's a first contact specialist. He's not a physicist. He's not something else. He has a basic knowledge of what we might consider to be some more advanced ideas about physics, because for them, that's the level that they're at. But he is essentially, as a first contact specialist, more of a diplomat psychologist, because he needs to express to us why we do what we do, why we choose to believe what we believe, and how we can change it in ways that make it more constructive for us. That's his understanding of how we change things in this world, is why do we do the things we do? Why do we believe what we believe? And how can we change those things?
We have some basic principles from Bashar, which I think would be helpful to explore a little bit. And one of them that stands out to me is the highest purpose for your life is to be yourself, to be the best to your ability, and to live each moment as fully as possible.
Yes.
Is it the biggest issue with humanity that we actually don't know who we are or how to live fully ourselves?
Yes. We are trying to be everything that we're not. And that's where the struggle comes from. We're told you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way, don't do this, don't stand out, don't follow your dreams, be practical. That doesn't work. That's not realistic. And that causes all the trouble, because then we're denying who we are and what we are. And we never find out what we are. And we go into all sorts of self-recriminations and self-doubt and lack of self-worth and depression and suicide and all sorts of stuff just because we're not allowed to actually figure out what and who we really are and why we're really here. So that's the main thing he's trying to do is, look, there are principles that are literally like instruction manuals for how you create your physical reality experience. And if you just follow them, you will find that your life will work because you're using the same principles now, but you're doing it unconsciously. And therefore, you're not making conscious choices that are to your benefit. You're making choices very often that are not to your benefit, that you think are to your benefit, but are actually counter to who you are. And that's what drags you down.
People think that they're making these decisions consciously and on purpose, but really they're being propelled to do it in a way that isn't serving them.
Quite often, because again, we have all sorts of things we pick up on, body language, telepathically from our parents, our society, our schooling, our friends, that we absorb because we think we have to in order to survive, in order to get along, in order to belong. And later on, we don't realize that all of those things are now shoved into our unconscious mind, and we're sort of acting on this robotic programming where we think we're doing the right thing, and we're constantly doing things that might work for other people but don't work for us.
I sit in two camps simultaneously. One is in the spiritual realm of believing that you need to find the things that bring you joy, that allow you to enter those brain states where time is passing and you're not thinking about it.
Right.
And that's where we truly thrive.
Yes.
And I believe that when you can really do that, you will develop a skill set that you'll find a way to earn a living at.
Exactly.
And then the other camp is that's all fine and good. But what if you're the thing that really lights you up is like knitting crochet, and there's only a certain living you're going to make selling that on Etsy, and you have to be practical enough to balance these two.
Two things.
Knitting and crocheting are two different things.
Two things. First and foremost, Bashar says you have to honor your belief system. If you don't believe your passion can support you, do not stop doing what you believe you need for support, because there's no sense jumping off a cliff if you don't have a parachute.
We can't have the hippies running the whole world.
No. However, the thing of it is people don't understand how it actually works when you follow your passion. They confuse that idea and add a lot of things that are really not in sync with what passion is and how it actually can support you. From his perspective, you don't have a soul, you are a soul. It's more accurate from his perspective to say not that your body has a soul, but that your soul has a body.
It's your meat suit.
Even less than that. In other words, I'll start from scratch. Imagine as a soul that you are just this sphere of energy. And it's full of ripples and patterns that represent different concepts and ideas, vibrational patterns that represent ideas in the soul, an energy being, non-physical. When it decides to have an incarnation, a physical experience, it's going to take some of those patterns that represent different concepts for that particular experience to learn a particular lesson or series of lessons. And it takes those patterns and it focuses them down into the center of that sphere. The sphere is still there because it's only taken a few of these concepts and focused it into the center to create, as an analogy, this little core hard seed in the center that is the focal point of those patterns. That's you. That's us. That's the physical person. That's the physical experience. That's where it's having the physical experience is within the soul, in the center of the soul. As you learn and you grow, you soften that focus. And as you soften that focus and start expanding back out toward the diameter, shall we say, of the soul sphere, you then start exhibiting more attributes of the soul. You can become more telepathic, more psychic, astral projection, near-death experience, dead, back to the soul self. So incarnations are like the soul breathing, focusing to the center, having an experience, going back out to the soul self.
If everyone has that, where is the interaction that we're having right now?
By agreement, by telepathic agreement, vibrational agreement.
So he has a little seed And I have a seed.
You are a seed.
I'm sorry, I am a seed.
And each of our souls has come down
Right.
in a pause. This is all happening in a pause.
But our souls are still in contact with one
Correct.
another non-physically.
But in this plane, we have a table here,
Yes.
and this is a book,
Yes.
and this is a computer,
Yes.
and we have a conscious experience of being here.
Yes, but all of these are the props that we're creating in our consciousness.
So is there a simulation component of your understanding
yes,
and Bashar's
but it's our
understanding?
simulation, not someone else's.
Right.
It's our simulation for our purposes, for experiencing certain things, learning certain lessons that help our souls grow in the way we chose to for this life.
What if you had to add to your personal, like Daryl encyclopedia of information in order to channel? Meaning, sometimes people have a near-death experience, and in that experience, they learn things that they have no background in, right? They'll return from an NDE with, an understanding of like quantum mechanics and things. Have there been things that you've had to learn? Have there been things that have been placed in you?
In fact, when I'm channeling to someone else, I can have a separate conversation with them about stuff I want to know about, and he can talk to me simultaneously. That's even freakier.
Do you talk to him when you're not channeling for others?
In dreams, I have. Generally, there have been a few times when I've asked, like, for example, early on.
Should I go on my Alex breakdown?
Oh, he had definitely said yes.
He's like, I don't know about
So did your wife, though.
Absolutely, yes. I wanted to know, how do your spaceships work? How do you get here from star to star? How does that work? The download took a second. It took me 3 hours to write it out. But he explained how they do it. It has to do with vibrational resonance. It has to do with the idea that time and space are illusions and that everything actually exists here at once. But from a physical point of view, that means that everything you consider to be a location has a specific signature frequency to it. So if they can surround their ship, let's say, isolate their ship with some kind of a force field that takes them out of any particular reality.
This is in Lou Elizondo's book also. He talks about
and
this,
they can impose a frequency of a different location, they instantly shift to that location.
So this is time travel.
No, it's space travel, but it's space-time travel. It's shifting. It's shifting vibrationally from one location to another.
And can they do it physically without a ship?
They can at this point in their evolution, but one of the reasons we asked him this one time, why do you still have ships if you can do that? And he said, because you need us to.
I thought I was going to say, we have a lot of luggage.
No, you need us to, because other civilizations need us to arrive like that, because they wouldn't understand if we just popped into their living room.
Here's a funny question. Does Bashar have a sense of humor?
Oh, absolutely. Constantly. That's one of the things people comment on the most, is that he has a very wry sense of humor.
I've seen some of the videos. There's a very specific countenance that you take on. It definitely, it doesn't seem like you. It's a different, countenance.
Yeah.
It's a different speech cadence. And,
Right.
it's very interesting. I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit about kind of what's the longest that you spend in that space. Is it exhausting? Like, what does it feel like, either emotionally or somatically? Like, what are you aware of when you're channeling?
In the beginning, it was tough to take. I'd say for the first 2 years, every time I did it, I would be exhausted afterward. Once I started sort of letting go of anything that was sort of in the way of trusting it and just getting, old ideas out and stuff like that, then it started energizing me. So now it energizes me. I'm left with that. The longest stint I think I ever channeled was about 5 hours. Now
Wow.
It's on average 90 minutes to 2 hours.
That's a long time, though, to be in that.
It doesn't
place.
feel like that, though.
Oh.
To me, it feels like maybe it's been 20 minutes.
I'm curious about the exhaustion part. Is it because you were nervous about what
No.
would be happening?
No, too much energy, not used to the energy level.
Not used to the
Well, also
energy
your
level.
brain is operating in a different state.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
It's,
Or have you ever thought, like, I'm not sure what to say or if I should?
I'm not saying anything. I never plan. No, yeah. It's like you're driving a car, but now you shift over to the passenger side and somebody else is driving. You can look out the window and pay attention to other things.
But I'm always terrified that the person driving isn't going to do a good job.
Oh, well, I know he's going to do a good job. I don't have to worry about his driving record. He's been doing this for 41 years now with me. So
But at the beginning, was there ever a time where you were a little bit of a nervous passenger, or just kind of?
no, because I already knew that was what the research was about. I already
Mm.
knew it could be a helpful thing.
And you remember everything.
I remember snippets of concepts that I need. I don't hear the words "that fades like a dream." So I'm aware there's
'Cause
something
you're in a
happening.
different brain state, literally.
Yeah, I'm aware there's something happening. But you know how, like, if you're like having a really strong daydream and somebody walks in the room and goes, Mayim,
Mm.
and you just like, what? You
Yeah.
don't hear it for like the third time they call you. It's like that. The conversation might as well be happening in another room.
I always have to call you 3 times before you listen to me. Are you channeling?
Could be.
I am very focused. I had a dream last night that I have never had before in my life, and it shook me. And I'm wondering if the dream had anything to do with this podcast, because I believe people come together and have a certain
Yes.
resonance and change to it.
I'm going to guess that it probably does, because that happens when Bashar does private sessions. He tells people, look, anytime I'm going to actually be talking to anyone physically through the channel, we always have a meeting in the dream state first to set it up.
Here's the quick version of the dream. I forget why I was somewhere very high. It was either a plane, but it didn't feel like a plane, but I was like at a vantage point that was extremely high. And there was a quick negotiation, and I was released from that vantage point, and it was a free fall. And I passed a bird that was flying, and I was like, oh, that's weird that I'm falling faster than this creature that should be able to go wherever it wants. And it's just an absolute free fall. And I'm like, oh, there was a moment of fear, and then there was no fear at all. And I'm like, I'm just going to land like a feather, and I'll be totally in control of it. And it reminded me of dreams, a recurring dream that I've had a lot, which is that I can fly, and sort of being in control of flight
That
is
sounds
sort
like
of
a typical astral projection.
most powerful. But I've never had it that level of free fall. And what struck me was both the terror and then the sense of serene confidence and peace in that free fall.
You might have been close to experiencing lucidity in the astral form.
Explain what an astral projection is.
Well, remember when I talked about the idea of how the soul...
Yeah.
Okay, well, then it's that you have relaxed the idea of your physical focus, and you have expanded back out to become... Your consciousness now is in the non-physical realm, but not all the way out. So you're still connected to the vibration of the physical realm, but you're able to transcend it and go wherever you want to go within a certain, amount of parameter. But you're now freer to explore different things because you're not limited by any physical boundary. So it's your consciousness moving. This is also similar to remote viewing. It's a form of astral projection. It's more of out-of-body travel.
I had a dream I had a gigantic tumor on my face. Should we talk about that?
That might be something else.
Just kind of dropping that in there, just to say, who knows?
That leads me to another one of the principles. You are so loved unconditionally by creation that you can even choose to believe that you are not loved.
That's how unconditionally loved you are. Yeah.
I mean, there's something both profound and very sad in that for me. Profound in that there's a force that exists that we just have to recognize. And the sadness is that there isn't some more guidance to help pick people up who are really struggling.
But it is there. But you have absolute free will to ignore it. Because that's
I think the sadness is the people who, for whatever reason, haven't felt it yet or are choosing.
Yeah, but your sadness is temporally based. And what I mean by that is, remember that souls are actually eternal and infinite. And therefore, everyone's always going to have another choice and another choice and another choice and another choice. It never ends. So everyone will get it at some point. There's no reason to be sad if they don't get it in one particular life. That's the way their life went. They'll learn from it.
In terms of the principles, and in particular, the wisdom that you have in the formula, in terms of this, is this something that you have an agreement with Bashar, to be able to articulate this and to, package it, right, in a way that people can have access to? Is this something that is an agreement of sorts?
Yeah, because I'll be, at this point now that I understand it as deeply as I do, I will actually start teaching classes on this. Because in any 90-minute channeling event, It's not enough time for people to really grasp the concepts. So I'll be doing, week-long, 2-week-long
Wow.
courses, hours and hours a day, so that through talking and also illustrations and demonstrations and what have you, people can really lock into the concepts, make them their own, and apply them in their lives to get an effect. So yeah, I know enough about it to be able to do that now. And I've been starting to do that. At certain events I go to, I will sometimes teach like one part of the class.
How do people start to open up their intuition or telepathic capability?
Well, again, the most important thing is to follow your passion, because when you do act on your passion, what happens? You raise your vibrational frequency. And when you raise your vibrational frequency, what happens? You become a better receiver or a better antenna for higher frequency information and higher frequency abilities. And so it just goes hand in hand. I mean, in a sense, from Bashar's point of view, and now I understand this is just physics. You can't perceive what you're not the vibration of. You have to be equal to the vibration of something. You have to be there first before you can perceive that. And when you're operating on a higher level, you can't have anything but the thoughts that go with that level. The only way to have more negative thoughts is to leave that level and go down to a lower vibration that is commensurate with those negative thoughts. Everything has its level.
I've heard it described as there's a point of no return when you start to explore healing and personal development, where you kind of realize that there's a tipping point.
Yeah, absolutely. Bashar talked about that for his own civilization. He basically said, look, we've been making positive choices in our society for so long, it would actually be a challenge for us to choose something negative. There's so much inertia, so much momentum energetically in our collective society that no one would even think about trying to go and make some negative choice. He said it would actually be difficult for them to do that. They would struggle to go negatively at this point.
I think especially with kind of what the world feels like now, there's a lot of, I think, extra uncertainty. I think there's a lack of trust, in, whether it's lack of trust in leadership or in the news that's reporting on the leadership. It feels like a very confusing time. And, as a parent of a teenager and someone in college, like I'm also hearing, from young people who feel very disillusioned.
Sure, absolutely.
What would you be able to offer, from what you have learned from Bashar about sort of the place of whether it's evil in the world or negativity,
Well, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. We have to understand that sometimes a soul will choose to do something that will point out to us the things that we've been doing that do not serve us. And they'll do it more and more strongly to get our attention.
Like a child.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, are we going to finally pay attention, or are we just going to break down? So we're seeing more and more extreme versions of that, because we have to wake up and we have to decide that we're not going to allow that to happen anymore. And we have to go to the causes of these things and not just deal with the symptoms. The second thing I'll say about that is, one of the things I really appreciate about the information that's come through is sometimes how it paradoxically reverses our preconceptions about things, like what you said. We have a lack of trust. From his perspective, there's no such thing as a lack of trust. There is, however, a trust in lack. We're always trusting something to be true, but are you trusting what works for you or what doesn't work for you? There's no such thing as lacking trust. Here's an example sometimes of Bashar's humor. When someone might come up to him and say, I'm not very confident. He'll say, well, you're confident about that, aren't you? You are confident that you're not confident. So it's not that you're not confident. You're using your confidence to be confident in something that doesn't work for you.
And people will say, well, my life has proven over and over and over again, therefore it's true.
Yes, but then he explains how that works and why they get that reflection. The reflection reinforces a belief they already had. And he can point out what that belief is that is causing that reflection that then reinforces itself.
A lot of people listening have health conditions which are a real hard situation to break out of a belief system from.
That's a belief. That's a belief. That it's hard to break out of that. That's a belief. See what I mean? How automatic that is? When we get into that, well, everyone knows it's hard to break. No, everyone doesn't know that. Everyone doesn't need to know that. That's a belief. So He's very quick about pointing out, listen to what goes through your head, listen to what comes out of your mouth. You're reinforcing something that doesn't work for you when you say it's hard to do that. Yes, it may be a challenge you laid out for yourself on your life, but that doesn't mean you can't face that challenge in a way that gives you a positive result and gives you a lesson you need to learn.
It's unpacking every idea that we have
Every
and
idea.
holding a space of
Yes.
the unknown to
Yes.
say, there is something here that I may not realize how it turns out yet,
Yes,
but there may be a different potential for it.
exactly. Always. Everything can serve double duty. Everything.
Even death.
As well, death is the finish of our school year, so to speak, the finish of our lesson. We're going back when we're done to decide how to use the lessons we learned here and to move on to something else.
You mentioned that you met your wife in a class. What has your personal life been like? Because in a sense, you carry another set of wisdom with you, another personality.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely made a change in who I am in terms of things like emotional balance, in terms of just, again, experiencing more synchronicity, in just knowing how things actually work allows me not to be reactive to things. It allows me to say, let me maintain, at the very least, a neutral position so that I can decide how I'm going to define this experience. And it is by how I define it that will determine how I experience it, because I know now everything can serve double duty. As Bashar often says, it doesn't really matter what happens. It matters what you do with what happens that makes the difference in your life. And so I've gotten to the point where I can hold a space for myself where I'm not automatically reacting to unconscious built-in belief systems that are out of alignment with who I prefer to be. I am able to say, this is happening in my life for a reason. Let me figure out what that reason is so I can use it not only to help myself, but maybe also to help the other people involved, because maybe there's something about this situation that they need to understand as well as I need to understand, because I understand maybe what I'm dealing with is not my issue, but their issue. And I need to maybe help them figure out how they can get around that.
Does Bashar help you make any decisions in your personal life? For example, did you say to Bashar, should I have kids? Should I do this? Should I do that? No, those are decisions you make on your own.
Absolutely. I mean, it wouldn't be a real relationship if he was trying to run me. He has his life, I have my life. We work together.
It's a work relationship.
Do you have any indication from Bashar how long this relationship will last? Meaning, is he with you for your earthly life?
I would think, I'm not positive about this, I would think that once extraterrestrials are physically here, there would be no reason to have to channel him. You can talk to the ETs yourself.
I mean, I wouldn't assume that I can communicate with extraterrestrials when they get here.
Why not? Let's just break this down into two basic types of extraterrestrials. We've talked about the hybrids. Hybrid extraterrestrials are a specific type that have a lot to do with our genetics being mixed in there with them. And they may, most of them look enough like us that they can be among us and have been among us for a long time.
Already?
Helping create different things in the sciences, in philosophy, in sociology, in politics, whatever. They're helping. When open contact occurs, my understanding is we will be told who they are and we will be able to interact with them in public.
It's me.
No, it's not.
No, none of them would reveal themselves at
Like
this
none
point.
of them would be tall Canadians.
None of them will reveal who they are at this moment. There have been instances where people have reported seeing, like, there was something very odd about this person. I couldn't put my finger on it. They felt like they weren't from here, but then I just went about my business. They have the telepathic ability to recognize when you recognize them and to turn you away and make you think about something else.
These are not the droids you are
You're
looking for.
Exactly. So that's one phase of open contact. The next phase is the pure extraterrestrials who will be introduced to us. Those we may not interact with a lot right away, but over the course of a few decades, they'll be fully integrated into our society and we into theirs. But first, the extraterrestrial hybrids that have already been here we can interact with them.
Would that mean the end of your relationship?
I don't need to channel if you can talk to an extraterrestrial
But that might be
face to
sad.
face.
He's been with you for
No,
so
because I'm
long.
going to still teach the principles. And that energy is still there. The connection is
Why
still
am I
there.
sad about it and you're not?
I don't know.
She's sad about a lot of things.
But that's very sweet of you.
Can we talk about the other aliens that are not the gray hybrids? What's their deal?
Well, there are beings that people have called out as being Pleiadian, Arcturan, whatever, reptilian, the mantis beings, insectoid beings. I think that as we get introduced to more and more extraterrestrials, we will be introduced to ones that at first are more like us, so we don't freak out. And then
I'm freaked out already.
And then over time, more of the ones that are not like us at all, because there are many more extraterrestrials that have no relationship to what we look like.
Okay,
at
I'm going
all.
to ask another stupid and cynical question.
Okay.
What happens if this doesn't happen? Meaning, will you get further information about why it didn't happen? And
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. But it will happen. It's inevitable at this point.
Like soon.
2027.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Also,
Pretty specific.
Well, 2026 is the year of disclosure, and that's why we're seeing more information in the congressional hearings come
I
out.
just thought it was the year that I was finally going to get fit.
And then it will culminate in the idea of an actual official public presentation.
What would you like us to do to prepare? Or what do you think, either you or what is the information? This is what to do to prepare.
Because it raises your vibration and makes you more vibrationally capable of interacting with higher vibrational beings. So that's what you do, is follow the formula.
given that human beings are not so great with welcoming the other, even the other amongst the same
Right.
species.
Well, that's why it will take decades for this to be absorbed into our society.
Are we concerned that there are going to be armed, resilient resistance to welcoming
Yeah.
aliens?
But the aliens have an advanced technology where that's not a worry to them.
they can't get shot.
They
for
can't
example.
get shot. If they do,
Do they
it
get
would be-
annoyed with that? Is that like a mosquito
No,
biting them? They're like,
not
what are these guys
really.
doing?
I mean, again, look at it this way. Like I said, the adults are stepping into the room. You can recognize when a child is throwing a tantrum, but you understand it's a child and it doesn't really understand what's going on. So you're not getting annoyed so much as you're going, I'll let you calm down for a minute and then we'll have a conversation.
Is this going to be like a dun da da da? Here we are.
She wants to be a part of the
Yeah, this is-
inaugural
No,
committee.
but
This is in
I'm-
phases. It's in phases.
Okay.
I think at first, in disclosure,
Yes.
we're going to have more and more absolute proof that
I
their
see.
ships are real.
Okay.
In other words, on the news.
Got it.
I'm going to be a little facetious right now. Maybe this is literal and maybe it's not. But just like you have a nightly weather report,
Yeah.
here's the nightly UFO report. This is what was seen over Brazil today. Here's a photograph. This is what was seen over Washington, D.C. today. Here's a photograph. So the ships at first
Okay.
will be documented
I mean,
more
I've seen
clearly.
Arrival, so yeah.
Yeah, will be documented more clearly. Then it will lead to, okay, we're going to have either something like a State of the Union address or an official press release or a press conference.
Is Trump still going to be president?
No.
I mean, you don't want to send the nukes out to the ships. Like, you know,
You can't. Like I said, ships over missile silos, off. We've done that. We've seen that several times. Malmstrom Air Force Base, around the world, ships over nuclear silos.
Why would I
launch
not
codes
feel threatened
scrambled.
by what you just said?
Because they're showing us we won't have a war, a global thermonuclear war. That we won't be able to launch against one another.
I'm going to say a horrible thing.
Okay.
What if
Yeah.
this is just all like a plot to like infiltrate and invade and maim and kill?
With their level of advanced technology, they could have done this 100 times over. Why would they wait until we had nuclear weapons to do so? Why wouldn't they have taken us over when we were Neanderthals? If they could do it. They've been around for millions of years.
They want our donuts.
they were waiting for us to make good candy.
This is where human-based fears come in without understanding what true intelligence is.
I mean, all my fears are based on lack of understanding what true intelligence
Well,
is.
exactly, because from Bashar's perspective, true intelligence operates on whole systems. It would never do anything to eliminate any part of the system to which it belongs, because
Right.
it would be damaging itself.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. And I like this sort of operational view. There's probably so much more to gain in that operational view, but if I shift to a couple of the practical questions, what's involved in spontaneous healing?
What's involved in spontaneous healing is first to understand that a healer never heals anyone directly. A healer puts out a vibrational frequency that represents the healed state. If the person requiring the healing decides that they're going to match that frequency, they will heal themselves.
This is, I think, one of the most simple explanations I've heard.
Let's just say in the Bible, Jesus never healed anyone. He said, your faith has healed you. Your belief has healed you.
I want to repeat it, though.
That's why.
The notion is that a
healer puts out a vibration that represents the healed state. The person requiring the healing has to agree to mirror that state within themselves, thereby healing themselves.
And we all know how to do that. We all can recognize this frequency and match it.
The only reason it wouldn't happen is if there is another lesson to learn by maintaining the disease. Not only the lesson may be for the person, but sometimes a soul will choose to have that experience for what other people around that person will learn.
And if they're struggling, can they get out of that contract by saying, I no longer want to
Just
participate
kidding,
in that?
I get it.
If it was part of the life path choice, yes. If it wasn't, no.
How do you know if it's part of that choice? Can you like muscle test? How do you figure it out?
Well, you just go through it and learn whatever lessons you can extract from it, because if you use up the lessons and there's no more reason for it, it will go away. If it stays, there's still a purpose for it.
It's like when we say, your defects, if they're serving you, you'll hold on to them.
Exactly.
And when they no longer serve you, you will have them released.
Exactly. But it's also about sometimes serving others, because sometimes a person that comes in with a particular condition is because of what doctors will learn from that will help humanity.
You're welcome to every doctor I've ever been to. You're welcome. You didn't know someone could have influenza A and B at the same time.
And
You're
now
welcome.
you've learned something that can help someone else. Exactly.
Do we all have angels,
Yes.
guardian angels,
Yes.
and non-physical support
Yes.
system?
Everyone has a spirit team of sometimes hundreds of beings.
Hundreds.
Yeah. Now, you might have two or three main spirit working guides that are specifically like, okay, I have the expertise to help you in this particular situation, or this guide switches off, I have the expertise to help you in that particular situation. Guardian angels are sometimes referred to as birth angels. They're the ones that keep you on the planet until you have actually agreed to leave. So that's why we have a lot of near-death experiences, or a lot of things that people go, I should have died. Why didn't I die? Or people attempting suicide that don't succeed.
They missed a
The
gunshot.
the birth angel says, not your time. You're
So
staying
how
right here."
much interference?
Depends on the level of what you're doing to yourself. So let's say it's something where, like you said, somebody puts a gun to their head. It's
and
not
they
their
miss
time.
somehow.
It jams. That could literally be the guardian angel saying that gun's not
Little
going to work.
stick of gum.
They can affect physical material that strongly if there's a need to, but they will try probably something more subtle earlier first.
Most famous example, Abraham and Isaac. He's about to kill him, and the angel says,
Stop.
What are your thoughts about people interacting with their primary guards or guardian angels on a regular basis? Should we be acknowledging them? Do we say...
Yeah, say hi, say, help. And that doesn't mean that they're going to just give you everything you want. It means they're going to help you figure out how to do it yourself. But you can always talk to them.
is this information that you had before Bashar?
No.
Why does Bashar know about guardian angels? Bashar knows about everything?
Because he knows about how the universe is structured.
That's number one. Number two, they operate on a frequency that is actually very close to spirit. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes in the presence of ETs, people panic, is because when you're exposed to a vibration that we read as the vibration of spirit, our primitive mind goes, I'm about to die. And it goes into fight or flight survival mode. And the fear comes up in us. You're not going to die, but that's how we react to being exposed to a frequency we read as the frequency of death.
Well, and also, I mean, what I'm thinking of is when people are in the presence of a great healer, right? Or a mystic, or what I'm assuming charismatic leaders, whether it's Jesus or, like when you think about being in the presence of someone who has achieved enlightenment, it's often frightening, right? And in Hebrew, we talk about it, this awe, right? The words are that like you're like trembling,
Exactly.
right? And it's that notion. And I wonder if that's sort of like,
it's a reaction to that higher
Right.
frequency because we're not used to that. And we
Right.
feel like we're about to be annihilated
Mhm.
by it. And so you go into survival mode.
I see people talking, right? And so I'm reflecting what I've seen, which is that many people are holding on to the narrative. They're holding on to their ideas. They can't, or they're struggling to shift their reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they get in the presence and they feel something different,
Mm-hmm.
they're terrified because they're not sure about taking that next leap, what that actually means
Right.
to leave that all behind. Can you talk about that? But what also strikes me is that how does addiction play in to keeping us stuck? Is it just another tool to help us avoid the discomfort of taking that step?
In a sense, addiction from Bashar's point of view is trying to fill an emptiness that you feel, trying to feel a connection where you don't feel one. And you're either doing one of two things. You are either attempting to numb it so you don't feel it, or you're trying to fill it with something that will never fill it.
The God-shaped hole.
But it's about the idea of feeling a disconnection, feeling an emptiness, not feeling connected to source.
Is that one of our greatest challenges of
Absolutely.
the digital era, is the feeling of emptiness?
Absolutely. Feeling disconnected. Strangely enough, paradoxically enough, when we have an internet that connects all of us, we feel more disconnected than ever because we're not really interacting.
How important is it for people to have a creative practice as a spiritual connection?
I think it's very important myself. You have to balance, the grounded practical stuff with the creative stuff in life, I think, to be a whole human being in some way, shape, or form. And I think a lot of creative practices do have a knack for connecting you to spiritual awareness. So absolutely. Although, again, I'm not saying that grounded stuff can't do that too, because staying grounded on the earth is also, in a sense, a spiritual practice.
I mean, something that's very grounded, just working with your hands in some way,
Exactly.
can also be highly creative because you're
Absolutely.
solving problems. So you're
Absolutely.
using both sides.
That is why my wife and I created an escape room in Calabasas.
So Valerie
Let's
and I
talk about that.
Valerie and I were just talking about this. What is that venture? Like, how do you see that as an extension kind of the work that you get to do?
Yeah, well, as you came out of the film industry and, we made 3 indie movies and you can't really make a great living that way. And we were looking around like, well, what uses the same skill sets we have that
Wow.
is more of a business, a year-long business,
That's
year
so
round.
cool.
And somebody suggested, we were first going to talk about doing like haunted houses that come out every, Halloween, because they are very lucrative. But somebody suggested an escape room. We said, well, what's that? And so we started doing research and found out that it's exactly what we were looking for, because I'm building sets, I'm building props, I'm telling stories.
You're telling a story.
It's just that the people are now the actors in the movie.
I want to recommend also. It's I don't want to say it's an easy read, but it's a logical and clear read.
Okay, thank you.
And it's really, it's organized with a lot of it's very intentionally kind of assembled so that you can understand practically what the things are
Yeah.
that we're all working on collectively. I
That's-
do recommend the formula.
Yeah, the formula is going to come out from St. Martin's Press next year, probably. It's going to actually be more of a workbook, so you can really
cool.
go through exercises in it that help lock some of
That's
those
great.
concepts.
It's
in.
really unbelievable. Where else can we direct people to learn more about the work you do and about Bashar?
To learn about Bashar, you can go to bashar.org, BASHAR.org, for the escape room, boggledescaperooms.com. For anything else I'm doing, like books and so on and so forth, you can go to darrylanka.com, DARRYLANKA.com.
If we are still doing this podcast next year, will you come back?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I feel like there might be more for us to talk about.
Sure, always. We've only scratched the surface.
We really have. As we transition as a human civilization into the next phase, can you leave us with a message that you hope people will take away?
What I can say about following all the steps of the formula is that I know it does work. Even before I knew anything about Bashar, And maybe because this was going to happen in my life, I have always been a person that refused to do anything that was not representative of my passion. And I've been doing that now for well over half a century, and it has always supported me, always. So it does work. You can make a living that way because you have to understand there's more than one form of abundance in the world. It's not just about the idea of money, although that's one valid representation of abundance. There are many forms of abundance, like synchronicity, like being given a gift, like having something to trade, communication, imagination, time, and space are all forms of abundance. And if you allow all forms of abundance to be equally valid, then they can work together to give you the 100% abundance you need to always move forward. So you just have to relax your definition of what abundance is and allow it to flow to you more automatically and more naturally, and you will be taken care of.
I would say this is one of the most unusual conversations we've had. It was very, very enjoyable, though, and really fascinating. And we appreciate the opportunity not just to, have you able to communicate the things that Bashar brings you, but also for people to understand what it's like to be the person who's holding this kind of information. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
And if Bashar has a coworker who wants to talk to me, I'm ready. I'm ready to channel.
Be careful what you wish for.
Obviously, this reminded me a lot of our conversation with Lee Harris, who also is channeling information, but has a very different kind of entry point in that Lee Harris, was literally like on the subway one night and, this kind of came to him. It's really interesting that Daryl, accessed this channeling opportunity through meditation and more through an intentional, like, can I receive information? He obviously was open to it. As he says himself, there's no way to kind of like verify the veracity of this. We don't know if it's absolutely true. What he knows is that he believes he's tapping into something that feels outside of his cognitive experience, feels like it's being downloaded. It feels like it's coming in an instant. And there's some sort of process that he's in with this other part of his consciousness,
What do you think about the change in brain state that was identified in the documentary and connected to this idea of the change in brain state that we have when we're in play in that way or in a creative space?
Yeah. I mean, what he's talking about is sort of, what we've talked about a lot when we speak about meditation. What frequency, right, are you vibrating at? Where if you were to, do an EEG, an electroencephalogram, recording, what is your brain doing? And yeah, we know that there are different states that people can get into and that they do get into. And, people like Richard Davidson who have done brain imaging of people, monks in deep meditative states, we know that the brain is going to behave differently. I don't know enough about, EEG recordings to be able to say that between 9 and 10 and 11 hertz, is a shift that's statistically significant. I don't have that information at hand. But what I will say is I think it's interesting that when undergoing an EEG study, there was a difference that apparently could be detected of different states. And yeah, what that indicates, again, is not proof of anything. What it shows is that he is in a different, kind of vibrational frequency when he's receiving this information or when Bashar is listening to information versus when it's his brain activity that's being recorded.
It is fascinating what we can access in different states. We think that just wherever we are is the nature of our reality, and how much is available to us as we shift how we're operating, how we're thinking, what our belief systems are, and even the speed at which our brain is processing.
Yeah. And also, one of the things that he talks about, in the formula, A Gift from the Future, which he says, as he mentioned, it's this kind of openness that he's hoping people will have, which is the same kind of openness that he believes will be necessary for whatever our next incarnation is, whether it's having contact with extraterrestrials or whether it's just being more in touch with our own needs, right, and our own destinies. What I was kind of pleased to find in this book is that there's nothing like so outside of the realm of understanding that it's like everybody needs to paint their faces blue. Like, it's nothing like that. It's, 5 principles that existence is all that there is. Everything's an expression or reflection of existence. Everything exists here and now. Everything's determined by resonance or a state of being, and everything constantly changes except these laws. These are the 5 principles, or what he calls the laws of existence. So, these are things that are helpful wise, very interesting. And there's also different actions you can undertake and effects that those have. It's very interesting.
An interesting conversation and something we didn't even expect as we started this podcast.
Not at all. And who knows? I mean, now I feel like I got to really suit up and show up for 2026.
I nominate you to be on the Alien Greeting Committee, putting forward a panel of humanity.
Like, now that you're here, I want you to meet this one.
I was also thinking maybe you should host those news updates.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Over the Sedona Mountains today, we saw, brought to you by Mayim Bialik.
Let's all stay tuned for that. But until then, from our breakdown to the one we hope you never have, we'll see you next time.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you. She's got a neuroscience PhD or two. One fiction, and now she's gonna break